Hey guys, how's it going? So in this video I want to talk a little bit about A-levels. So it was this time last year that I was actually doing my A-levels. This is my first year not doing A-levels. I actually did 3 years of A-levels, which was pretty bad, but oh well, I got through it somehow. But I thought I'd share some tips with you guys, you know, saying what I would do differently this time around if I were to like redo A-levels, because A-levels I think is one of those things that everyone says are really hard, but like once you're through them you kind of feel a bit more confident about them. So I thought I'd share some tips with you guys in case any of you guys are going through A-levels at the moment on what I would have done differently. Now basically everyone kind of gets pushed into the same boat with A-levels. At the start of the year in September, when you first start doing levels, you've just finished your GCSEs, and a lot of people say that the step up from GCSEs to A-levels is quite a big leap, and I certainly found that when I first started doing my A-levels, because GCSEs were pretty okay for me, but in my first month of doing A-levels was the big shock, you know. And A-levels really is the point where the teachers like to kind of differentiate like the people who basically could get by just from natural talent and the people that could who actually really wanted to study. And a lot of people were dropping out in my college like 1 or 2 months in. So basically that's kind of what A-levels are designed to do. But I know a lot of people who actually really wanted to study and really kind of wanted to get into university, but unfortunately they found A-levels at first very hard. And I think I kind of fell under this category for a while. I remember in my first couple of months I had like teachers and stuff who were, you know, banging on about assignments and stuff that had to be due in like really soon. And the best thing is to basically just do them as soon as you get set in. I know that's what everyone says, and I know in practice like getting the motivation to actually do that is like quite different from just like saying it, but really does help, you know, because once it's done, you can get it off your mind, you can go back to chilling on whatever you're doing, watching another episode of Netflix, although don't watch too many because that is a very easy thing to do. I may or may not have been guilty of that myself. But yeah, that is the first thing. Second thing is do as many past papers as you can. Past papers is most definitely the best way you can revise, because that's pretty much what you're going to be tested on. You know, it's the same level, and you know, it's almost exactly that. You know, I actually did maths and physics at A-level, and I found that in maths in particularly, you're always going to get a question on, say, arithmetic series, and you're always going to get like a question on differential equations. You know, there were like 9 questions in the paper, and you'll always get one specific question. I don't know if that would apply to other subjects or more written-based subjects like English or history, but I know if you're doing maths and physics, there's also almost certainly going to be like a question about a certain area. So I think kind of getting a feel for like, you know, the types of questions you're going to get asked is a pretty important thing, because once you know the kinds of questions that they ask, then you can kind of like come up with like your own way which works well for you of answering them and approaching them. Obviously everyone's mind is going to work a bit differently, but they can only ask you a certain number of different types of questions, so getting to know what the types of questions are is a really big help. So for example, in physics you're always going to get a few questions where you have to draw a graph. Drawing a graph, those types of questions are pretty easy. It's basically just a checklist of stuff that you've got to remember. But also in physics, say you're going to get like a really long written question. At least in my exam board, I got like 1 6-marked quite lengthy written question on each paper, and if you kind of develop like a strategy for answering them to make sure you get all 6 marks, that is the way to do it. So basically learn the types of question. The next thing is also to start revising early. I think the earlier in the year you start revising, the better you're going to feel when it comes to like May or June. I think that there is like a sudden point where, you know, like a concept which you might have been having a bit of difficulty with becomes clear quite suddenly, and you know, when it does become clear, it's a really satisfying feeling, and I think that's definitely worth working for. In my experience, it was kind of like in February or March of every year that the concept suddenly clicked, and then once it clicked, you know, I was actually starting to enjoy doing revision. So basically just revising is difficult to start with, because at first you might not understand anything, but the more you do, the better it becomes. And I think it is a gradual thing generally, but there are like sudden occasions where a concept can just click like that. So, you know, getting familiar with the concepts and really understanding. The other thing is learn a bit more than what's on the syllabus. On the syllabus, they actually give you quite a restricted range of content, and some of it might not actually make all that much sense without looking into it in a bit more detail and actually realizing how, you know, certain concepts were developed or something. You know, in physics, certainly they actually oversimplified the syllabus quite a lot, and you know, it actually was worth, I mean, my teacher actually went into a bit more detail than they actually went into in the actual syllabus, and so as a result it kind of made more sense. You know, there was actually, in this particular example, you know, getting a bit of historical background on something. However, a lot of these only apply to subjects where you have an exam at the end, and I know a lot of you guys might be doing something like art or design, which are pretty much entirely coursework based. I actually did graphic design at college, and that was entirely coursework based. There was no exam at the end, and that one, for me, I struggle with a lot more than like maths and physics, which are the other two subjects I did. And basically, the big habit that a lot of people fall into is leaving everything till the last minute. Now, this is something that's very easy to do, but the problem is it just mounts up. At first, you know, procrastinating like a job at first is, you know, seems like an alright thing to do. It makes a bit of sense. But then, like, when you kind of have been doing that for a week or 2 weeks, which is pretty much what happens so much, you know, and it's very easy to do, you're kind of like, shit, I'm 2 or 3 weeks behind where I should be, and the final deadline's like tomorrow. So obviously when you're in that position, it's a bit of a panic. And I actually remember myself, there was a week before the graphics deadline, and I still had so much work to do, and it was very hard, like, catching up with it. Whereas, you know, if I'd have like started a little bit earlier, then I wouldn't have had so much difficulty in catching up with it. So I know it's quite a kind of a hard thing to do, to, like, you know, regularly do bits of coursework, but I think little and often definitely is a really, really good way, you know, and eventually it will just become a habit, you know, like just revising for, you know, any other subject, you know, it'll become a habit, you know, of like, you know, say doing a bit of an hour or so, or half an hour of graphics at like 4 PM or something, and you know, if you get into like the routine of that, that's when it, you know, it can really get quite powerful, and you know, it will be really, really good, and you know, you'll get it done in no time. So those are just a few tips for you guys, in case any of you guys are going through A levels at the moment, or you know, and if you guys are panicking. It's not too late to revise. Obviously, being June, we're coming to the end of exam seasons, and so you guys probably don't have many exams left, but you know, if you guys do have a few exams left, or you're still finish out coursework, you know, I hope these tips will come in handy. So good luck with any exams, or you know, getting any coursework done, and I'll see you guys in the next video.